Hello everyone, welcome all of you again in my YouTube channel all about physics. In my last video, I provided you an assessment containing of some tough physics questions. But now in this video, I am going to provide you the simple easy solutions by managing your time in exam halls. So without skipping this video, watch till the end, and if you like this video, please do like and share this video and subscribe my channel, and please press the bell icon for next future updates. So let's start this video. Effective length of the simple pendulum can be given as the length of the string plus radius of the bob, because effective length means the mass which is swinging its center of mass, the distance of the center of mass from the fixed point. Therefore, here according to the formula, the effective length is, we are writing length of the string plus diameter of the bob, as because here diameter is given, divided by 2. So putting the values, the length of the string which is given as 88.2 centimeter, and diameter of the bob which is given, which was measured by vernier calipers. That's why it has some more significant figures than the length of the string which was measured by normal meter scale. And after, first of all, in this calculation we have to divide the diameter by 2 to find the radius. Okay, so to find the radius, or in any type of calculation in physics, we have to maintain the significant figure law. That is, during multiplication or division, the total number of significant figure rule should be maintained. What was that rule? According to that rule, the number which is to be multiplied or divided, the total number of significant figure present in that number of significant figure, that should be considered in our result. That is, here we have got 1.765 as the radius, but it becomes more significant than the diameter, because the diameter has had 3 significant figure. That's why we have to reduce our radius up to second decimal place. That's why it is 1.76. And now during addition we have to maintain the law of significant figure again. That is, the minimum significant figure present in the number after the decimal. Like with example here, that two numbers, that is 88.2 and 1.76. Here 88.2 has the minimum number of significant figure, 10 significant figure, that is one significant figure in 8.2, but in 1.76 it was two significant figures after the decimal. That's why a result should contain one significant figure after the decimal, and that is why our 89.96 result became 90.0 centimeter. Here the 0 is significant. Now to find the error percentage or relative error of acceleration due to gravity, we have to write the normal equation relating the time period and length and the acceleration due to gravity, and according to that relation, g is equal to 4 pi square into L by capital T square. Here the power I am highlighting with blue color, because to find the relative or percentage error, the power plays an important role. Like here, delta g by g, which is the relative error equation of acceleration due to gravity, is equal to 1 into delta L by L. That is, the power should be multiplied to the component relative errors. That is 1 into delta L by L, plus for the time period it is 2 into delta T by T. Now the main function, we have to calculate the delta L, delta T part from our given informations. Now according to our question, the total effective length is 90.0 centimeter. That indicates that the minimum measurement that can be done is up to first decimal place. That is up to first decimal place. Therefore, our delta L should be 0.1 centimeter, because the minimum measurement that can be done by the length measuring scale is 0.1 centimeter, which was denoted by the actual length, that is 90.0. Similarly, for the time period, here the total time period that is given 90.0. Here it is not the time period, here it is the total time measured by the clock, that is 90.0. That 0.0 part is very much significant here, because it indicates that stopwatch is able to calculate up to first decimal place. So from here we can write that delta T is 0.1 second, because it can measure up to first decimal place. So the minimum time can be calculated by this stopwatch, or what type of clock it is 0.1 second. So putting these values in our normal equation, we have got our relative error form, that is delta g by g is equal to 1 into delta L by L. Here we are putting delta L equals to 0.1, L equals to 90.0, plus 2 into delta T equals to 0.1, and T equals to 19.0. This calculation gives us the relative error of G is about 0. That is, the corresponding percentage error of the acceleration due to gravity is 1.16%. Okay, that is our answer. Now you can practice this type of questions and you can answer them very easily. So this is the process of solving this type of question. Now question number 2. Here two charges plus 5 coulomb at A and B, plus 5 microcoulomb, and another charge minus 5 microcoulomb is shot perpendicular to the line joining the AB through C. Here X is any point. As the charge at X is negative, so A and B charges will apply attractive force on the test charge, that is minus 5 microcoulomb. So due to this test charge, the net resultant force will be along that perpendicular line along which it was shot. But here the main trick lies. We don't know the point of shot X, but we can calculate, because it will be not required, because the particle will be attracted towards the line AB up to point C due to the attractive force by A and B. So the particle that was shot would have not to lose nothing of its energy. So up to C, it will gain some potential energy also along with its kinetic energy. Now after point C, it will lose its energy, because forward, but the charges at A and B are trying to oppose its motion. Now suppose it will come to rest at D, which is at a distance of x from C, and A to C or C to B is 3 meter according to our question. So AD is root over 9 plus x square. Now applying energy conservation theorem at 2 points C and D, that is total energy at point C must be equal to total energy at point D, because it is a conservative system. There is all the forces acting here are conservative in nature. But here we are not applying the point x because it's a variable point, and during its motion from x to C it doesn't loses nothing of its energy. That's why we are conserving, or we are equating the energy at point C and D. At point C it has two type of energy: potential energy gained during its motion from x to C, and kinetic energy with which it was shot. But at point D it is at rest, therefore it has only potential energy. Now applying the potential energy formula due to point charges. At point C the distance between the charges are 3, and at point D the distance is root over 9 plus x square. For two charges, the blue highlighted line indicates 2 is multiplied due to 2 plus 5 microcoulomb charges, and equating this we are getting x is equal to 4 meter, which is our required answer. So in this way we can easily solve this question. Now we have completed question number 1 and question number 2. Now question number 3. Here there is an infinitely long cylinder. We have considered a particular length. Cylinder, the radius of the cylinder is r. There is a cavity inside the cylinder, spherical cavity, whose radius is r by 2, and the point P, which is situated at a distance of 2r from the axis of the cylinder, where we have to find the electric field due to this structure, and rho is the volume charge density of this structure. Okay, now these are the informations which are given. Now we have considered a particular length of the cylinder as L. Now applying Gauss theorem, we are going to calculate the flux due to the cylinder, considering the cylinder is completely solid, there is no cavity. First thing, understand, we are finding the electric field at point P due to the cylindrical structure without any cavity. I will come to this point later on, how to calculate with cavity. Okay, so the area, it is the curved surface area, and the area vector is parallel to the electric field vector at point P. Therefore, according to the formula of flux, that is EC, C for cylinder, AC means curved surface area of the cylinder, is equal to flux coming out through the Gaussian surface. Here the Gaussian surface is a cylindrical Gaussian surface having radius 2r, because the point P is situated at a distance of 2r from the axis of the given cylinder, and length of the cylinder is L, as we have considered earlier. QC is the charge of the cylinder, total cylinder without the cavity, okay, divided by epsilon naught according to Gauss theorem. So EC is equal to QC by epsilon. So QC is the volume charge density into total volume. So what is the volume? Rho into what is the volume? It is pi r square. It is the cross sectional area into length of the cylinder divided by curved surface area. What is this surface area? This is the surface area of the larger cylinder having radius 2r. That's why the surface area is 2 pi into 2r, which I am writing in black, that is 2r into the same length, that is L. Now calculating this, we have got the electric field due to the cylindrical structure complete without any cavity. Now, considering the spherical cavity which is given, considering it is as a solid sphere, we are about to calculate the electric field due to the solid sphere at point P. So we have considered a spherical Gaussian surface drawn in green. AS is the surface area of the Gaussian surface. Now applying the Gaussian theorem again, here ES, that is the electric field due to the spherical structure, solid spherical structure of radius r by 2, which is parallel to the surface area AS. So applying Gauss theorem, we are getting electric field due to the spherical part of radius r by 2 is total charge divided by epsilon naught into area. So what is the total charge? That is volume into surface volume charge density. Volume charge density is rho and volume is 4 by 3 pi radius cube. Radius of the spherical part is r by 2 whole cube. Okay. And the surface area of the Gaussian surface is, which is the green sphere as shown in the figure, that is 4 pi 2r whole square, because the point is situated at a distance 2r, the point P, like our previous cylindrical calculation. So this electric field comes out to be r rho by 96 epsilon naught. Now, as because both the electric fields are directed in the same direction, and we have to calculate the electric field due to the given structure having a cavity inside it, but we have calculated electric field due to a solid cylinder and electric field due to a solid sphere. So to find out the required result, we have to subtract this result from the larger one. Then we will get the required electric field at point P due to the given structure, given cylindrical structure having a spherical cavity inside it. So it is about 23 r rho divided by 96 epsilon naught. Now we have to compare this result with our given result, that is 23 r rho by 16 into k epsilon naught. So comparing these two, we are getting k is equal to 6. So this is the process of solving this type of critical problems easily. Okay. So question number 4. Here it was said that a luminous point P is situated inside a circle such that light after reflection twice. Here the inner surface of the circle is a type of mirror. So it will reflect, and it was said after two reflections, it will again return to the point P. And here we have drawn the center, we have drawn a diameter from the point P, and the distance small a and small b are given in the question, and according to the question, small a and small b are shown in the figure. And theta is angle of incidence or angle of reflection in each reflection. So P is shown. This is the center of the spherical mirror, that is C, and it is the point where the diameter intersects the ray. At this point I am giving the name D. And this is the this is A is the first point of reflection and B is the second point of reflection. Now taking the triangle, this calculation is very easy, just if you can concentrate. The triangle ADC is a right angle triangle because CD, according to our basic theorem, we know the CD, that is the line passing through the center, divides the line AB or bisects the line AB perpendicularly. So ADC is a right angle triangle from where tan theta, that is tan DAC or CAD, whatever, tan theta is equal to height by base. Height is DC or CD, that is B as shown in the figure, and divided by AD. We don't know this AD. Suppose AD is equal to X, so tan theta equals to B by X, so X equals to B by tan theta. Now for another right angle triangle ADP, tan, we are taking tan DAP, that is tan 2 theta. See the figure, you can understand easily. It is tan 2 theta. Okay, so this tan 2 theta is equal to PD divided by AD. So this PD is A plus B according to the figure, and AD we have considered as X. Now from our previous calculation we have got X equals to B by tan theta. So we are putting, or we are substituting the value of X, and the result will become A plus B into tan theta by B. Now in the left hand side there was tan 2 theta. So according to the submultiple angle formula of trigonometry, we are getting 2 tan theta by 1 minus tan square theta, and on the right hand side A plus B into tan theta by B. Now after calculation, this is a very easy calculation, and through this calculation we are getting tan theta is equal to root under A minus B divided by A plus B. That is our result. This was a tough question, but we have calculated this one very easily. Along with our knowledge of reflection, we have applied our knowledge of mathematics. So we have completed question number 4 also. Now question number 5. In this question, it was said that a light source is situated at a depth of h inside a water body, having a refractive index mu. Now we know the theory of critical angle when light passes from denser to rarer media. So the blue light indicates the proper normal reflection, but the red light ray indicates the beyond which there will be total internal reflection. So light will go out of the water body up to the red light ray. So now according to generalized Snell's law, mu sin theta c, here theta c is the critical angle between the water body and the air, is equal to 1. 1 is the refractive index of the air, considering 1, and the angle in the air is 90 degrees. So we are getting sin theta c equals to 1 by mu. Now keep this aside, we will need this one. Now we have to calculate how much energy is going out of this body. So here this angle is theta c, or if in a conical section, if this semi-vertical angle is theta, then the total solid angle, this is the expression of solid angle. Solid angle can be given by 2 pi into 1 minus cos theta, where theta electricity is only getting out through this angle theta c into the air, up to this angle theta c. So we had our sin theta c equals to 1 by mu. Now we have to calculate cos theta c. As we know, to find the solid angle, required solid angle, we need cos theta c. So putting this value of sin theta c, we are getting cos theta c equals to root under mu square minus 1 by mu. Now we have to apply this result into the formula of solid angle, and we are getting the necessary or the light energy coming out through the solid angle. Here actually the fraction means the ratio of the solid angle through which the light is coming out of the water body to that of the total solid angle, because light is distributing in all over the side but coming out only through the theta c semi-vertical angle conical section. So we have got our required solid angle, that is 2 pi into mu minus 2 over mu square minus 1 by mu, and total solid angle we know 4 pi. Okay, you can find this value also putting theta equals to pi in our required solid angle formula, 2 pi into 1 minus cos theta. So our required fraction should be required solid angle, the ratio of the solid angles. And now after putting the values of our required solid angle and the total solid angle, we have got the required fraction of energy that was coming out of the water body is about 1 by 2 minus 1 by 2 mu root under mu square minus 1. That is our result. So it also become a very easy type of solution if we know the proper way of solving. Okay, so we have completed number 5 also. Now number 6. When a charge is placed at the corner of a cube, we know the charge that is enclosed by that cube is 1 by 8 enclosed by this cube. So according to Gauss theorem, total charge enclosed divided by epsilon naught gives the total flux through that structure. So total flux is total charge, that is q by 8 divided by epsilon naught. So our result comes out to be q by 8 epsilon naught. This is the first part of our question number 6. So this is even much more easier if you know the proper structure. Now for question number 2, we have to calculate the flux due to a charge which is situated at a distance of x from a ring of radius capital R. Okay, so this question is to be solved in a reverse manner. That is, we can directly find the flux. We have not to find the electric field due to the charge, then area multiplication. It is not to be done. Here it is the point situated having a charge q. So there is a formula by which, according to which total flux through an area, this type of structure, conical, where there is a conical structure is present having semi-vertical angle theta, considering or covering some solid angle, the total flux is q by epsilon naught, and if it then multiplied with some fraction, that is solid angle covered by this conical section divided by total solid angle, that is 4 pi. So if it is a complete structure, then see the required solid angle becomes 4 pi, then it is cancelled, the total charge is enclosed, then it becomes q by epsilon. That is a normal Gauss theorem. Now according to our previous equation of solid angle, we have got, putting this, we can derive this cos theta value, and we can put this value of cos theta into our required equation. That is, here according to the triangle, right angle triangle, cos theta is equal to base by hypotenuse, that is x by root over r square plus x square, and we are getting the total flux is equal to q by 2 epsilon naught within bracket 1 minus x by root over x square plus r square. Okay, so this is another lesson for you. It will help you in your different competitive exam. So this is our easy and shortcut explanation of this tough question. So we have covered 6 also. Now our question number 7. It is the locus of a projectile which is projected. Now the black dot indicates any position of the projectile at any point, and this is our velocity of projection that we have considered as u. We will not need this one. Just for your understanding, I am drawing this direction of the projectile, direction of the motion. This is the angle of projection theta, as it was said, 60 degree, and the angle made with the horizontal by the line joining the very point at any instant with our initial point and the final point. These two angles are alpha beta according to the question. The figure which I have drawn is given in the question. Now there is a formula. I am not giving the proof of this formula because it can make the video lengthy. If you need this, or if you need the proof of different formulas, you can ask for this in the comment section or personally. I will try to make a video upon them. Now this is the formula for any position, for any point on its path, on its locus of a projectile. The tan theta is equal to tan alpha plus tan beta for any point. Remember, for any point. So here theta is given, that is almost 60 degree. Alpha is given also, that is 30 degree. So putting these values, we can easily calculate the value of beta. And now the equation, now the solution becomes very much easier. If you know this formula, you will be able to solve this. So in this way you can calculate. I think so. Okay.